It is decision day for the thousands of immigrant women and children being held in detention centers throughout the country. The Obama administration must announce today what it plans to do with the facilities in the wake of two federal court rulings that attack the practice of detaining families seeking asylum. MSNBC reporter Amanda Sakuma has been following the story for months. She joins me this morning. Amanda, great to see you.
Good morning, Jose.
What could happen today?
Well, a federal court has found that the Obama administration has violated decades-old standards in place that tell the administration how they detain young children. Now, essentially, the federal court judge in California issued a very scathing order last week condemning the Obama administration for effectively not crossing their T's and dotting its I's when it comes to putting asylum-seeking families in these detention centers and run by unlicensed facilities that are run by private prison facilities. And so these came in the wake of the massive surge at the border that we saw last year. But in the last year, these federal court rulings have chipped away at the policies, and many advocates and many lawmakers, in Republicans and Democrats in the Congress, have said that this isn't a chance for the administration to abandon the practice entirely, to shut down these centers and release the women and children who are asylum seekers.
So what happens today?
Today, the administration could lay out the parameters for how it could sign on to the agreement, how it basically could make the facilities licensed. But really, it's an uphill battle for the administration. They have been ordered to release many of these women and children who have already been found to be asylum seekers. The administration itself has already found that some 90% of the women and children pass the minimum threshold to prove that they are, in fact, asylum seekers, and that when they fled their home countries, mainly from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras in Central America, that they had legitimate grounds to come to the U.S. and seek shelter.
Amanda Sakuma, thank you very much. I'd like to bring in Congressman Luis Gutiérrez, an Illinois Democrat and one of the leaders in the push to close family detention centers. Congressman, always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Jose. Pleasure to be with you.
Last week, you were one of 178 Democrats to sign a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson urging him to end family detentions. Explain your thinking.
Well, we've come a long way, number one. I want to be so thankful to all my colleagues in the House of Representatives, 178, only 3 short of getting all the Democrats. And that came after a visit, as you reported on earlier, Jose, when we went to visit these detention centers. We wanted to put a bright light on the detention centers, and what we saw was a very sad situation. You know, a lot of people laughed that Obama was a former community organizer, and some people might chide me that I was a social worker. But I was a social worker for 5 years, Jose, Department of Children and Family Service. We were always out to protect the children. But if not that, you and I are dad. We know how children get sick. You can't put 1,200 little kids in a prison run by a private. So here's what I hope happens today. We went back, obviously, there's court proceedings established since 1997 that you must put these children in the least restrictive setting. And I just want the public to understand something, that when these mothers and these children crossed the borders, they came and handed themselves over to the authority and applied for asylum in the United States. And as your reporter so very well noted, we believe that 80% of them will win the cases. So look, shut down the detention centers. It's no place. If you come as a child, you know, as a juvenile alone, you are put in a very unrestricted setting, and you're immediately placed with family relatives or in a wonderful setting for you to wait the outcome of your asylum. These moms and these children, they should close them down. I do want to thank the Department of Homeland Security for releasing, after our visit, hundreds of these moms and children. Now it's time to finish the job and release them all.
And Congressman, you know, a few things. Yesterday on Enfoque, on my Telemundo Sunday show, we had a mother who was released temporarily. She's now wearing an ankle bracelet. But these, and it's important to say, these aren't people that were caught crossing illegally or were stopped for a traffic violation or for a crime. These were people who actually crossed the border and handed themselves in requesting asylum. That's a different kind of a thing, isn't it?
It is very, very different. So they're leaving Guatemala, they're leaving El Salvador, they're leaving Honduras. Honduras, the murder capital of the world, where drugs lords and gangs run the day. I mean, they are, in most cases, the government. sadly to say, they take the place of any civil society as we know it. They are in charge. And so they come fleeing. And then they go before a judge, Jose. I want you to understand. They go before a judge, and the judge finds credible fear. That means a magistrate said, you know something? You have a pretty good case there. You might prevail. But now you have to prepare for the trial, which could take 2 to 3 years. So in the interim period, we're going to release you. We're going to release your children as you wait for your trial. And we have found that if they go to family members and if they go to communities, they show up for those hearings. They've come here fleeing violence. Your point, I think, is to say they never committed a crime. It is not a crime to flee violence, persecution, and the end of your life and come to the United States seeking refuge. That's not a crime. That's why we have laws on the books, and we should respect those laws. And the law clearly says since 1997, you cannot keep these children locked up.
It's not a crime to request asylum in any country.
It's not a crime. It's not a crime. You know what it's a crime? It's a crime that somebody is fleeing violence and drug lords and rapists and murderers and those in human trafficking, and then we lock you up. It's not. We've locked them up, some of them for over a year. I'm happy that many of them have been released. I say let's close them down. Plus, you should not put them in a setting where the jailers are for-profit corporation you give them $10, they're going to try to keep 8. They're not considering social workers. They're not considering doctors. They're not considering meals. A private corporation in the United States wants to maximize what? Its earnings and its profit and not care for the human beings. We should, Jose, last point is, we should send them over to the Department of Health and Human Services. That's what we do when a youth comes unaccompanied without a parent. They go over to the Department of Health and Human Services. Let's send it over to the people who care about families and children and know how to care for families and children.